It's the 8th of March, 2018. Two men have been arrested for an incident at Nottingham Trent University.
Then let's talk about the situation coming out of Nottingham Trent University in the UK. Yesterday, a woman by the name of Rafaro Chisango tweeted out a video of what was going on in the hallway outside of her room at that university. The caption reading, "Yo, I'm fuming. The way people in the same uni halls as me are chanting 'We hate the blacks' outside my bedroom door. Words cannot describe how sad this makes me feel. In this 2018, people think this is still acceptable."
Say ooh, fuck the blacks. Say ooh, fuck the blacks. Say ooh, fuck the blacks. Say ooh, fuck the blacks.
Not even 2 weeks later at the University of Exeter, screenshots of a group chat from the Bracton Law Society surface, the contents of which are racist, homophobic and sexist. If students and young people are meant to be the most liberal, understanding, accepting generation to date, then what the hell do we do now? In this documentary, I'll be exploring the aftermath of the Bracton Law Society scandal and discover how the students and administration here at Exeter have chosen to deal with this latest incident. I'll be talking to students and faculty members representing different societies and organisations to uncover the nature of modern-day racism and learn what we can do to move forward and create a safer environment for future Exeter students. For XTV, welcome to UNMASKed.
I'm not loud enough, but maybe it's because I'm not black enough, or so I thought. Midnight Thursday night. Get out of my country, you fucking nigger. Nigger? Is that me? I guess it must be, because like a weight, I'm surrounded by a sea of white skin, and some would rather divide when I'm just trying to survive.
2 days after the release of the Bracton Law Society's messages to Facebook, a group calling itself Exeter Unmasked formed in response to this and other incidents at the uni. Today, their rally is set to take over the forum and raise awareness and give BAME students especially a chance to speak their mind and break the silence.
Obviously, in light of the whole Bracton Law Society stuff, a couple of friends and I, including Mavanga, thought that there should be a reaction to this, and it came to a sort of breaking point where like a rally or at least a gathering was necessary. So we set up a couple of like meetings and just got people together who are affected by racism on campus daily, regardless of the Bracton Law Society whole scandal and stuff. So I guess we thought this was an opportunity for people of colour to just voice how they feel about racism in Exeter, and yeah, really.
Thank you guys for showing up today. We really appreciate it. As Neha has already said, this is a reaction to the racist text and racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic, all the discriminations put in one. And we are here today because we are not happy. We are not happy with what we saw. Some of those people were friends to some of us present.
Typically, university students are meant to be more liberal, especially this generation, more liberal, more accepting. Were you surprised at the content of the messaging, seeing that we're at a university, or were you shocked?
Surprised by the content, not surprised by its existence. As a whole, I don't think... I mean, at one point, there is a kind of an understanding that this is the entirety of the university. I don't think... Like saying Exeter is a racist university doesn't really dig into the nuance of it all, which is that actually this is hidden a lot of the time. And so I was shocked that this was unearthed, but I think it kind of indicates that, you know, the things that we don't see are as insidious and are have an effect on student lives all the time, and we don't get a chance to talk about it. And I think as well, like, you know, this incident brought up everyone being able to flag up so many different incidents on this campus, which are completely not connected as much as they could be. And yeah, I'm not surprised.
The thing about shock is that kind of implies that I didn't expect this kind of thing, and I kind of do. Like, sadly, it is something that I think is a problem at this uni and kind of has been a problem for a while. So I would say less shocked, more like horrified. It's like really depressing, but it's not really something that I think has been eradicated, like whether it's racist content, sexist content, homophobia, like I think it's all very present. And like I do think, you know, to a certain extent, people expect less sexism, I would argue, and more, and like, you know, not expect racism, but like I think it's given more of a free pass, whereas sexism is passed off a lot as like locker room banter, stuff like that.
Yeah, similarly, when I saw those messages Monday evening, it was just kind of very visceral reaction to something that I personally haven't been affected by, but again, I felt like I needed to show my support and kind of be, a part of that community at that time to really kind of make sure that this didn't, die out, this wasn't brushed over, it wasn't seen as, an isolated incident, and kind of to be able to actually come together again to vocalize that, I thought was really important, which I often don't feel the need to. I'm kind of, sometimes a bit cautious about events like these and kind of its importance in the world. But I think actually a lot of the time, as you're saying, your silence will not keep you safe.
When did you and your friends find out about the BLS messages, and what did you think?
We found out pretty much as soon as it was posted on Facebook. I can't remember who it was, but somebody shared it on Facebook, and that kind of went viral in the Exeter student community.
I think I heard a couple of days later after it happened, and it's like, oh, what is it about? Then I checked the Facebook page, and then I realized what happened.
I'm pretty sure I was in my kitchen, and one of my flatmates started talking about it, and obviously, we were shocked that people have been. We weren't shocked about the presence of it. It was more the fact that people were doing it so open, talking about stuff like that so openly.
I was sat at home and probably saw it on Facebook like everybody else did, and I just remember being horrified by it, because as much as it's obvious that things like this still happen, bigotry still exists, I think you kind of hope that within your community that it's not necessarily there.
And we were all pretty outraged. We were sharing it amongst ourselves and everything, saying, oh, I can't believe people have actually done this. It's the sort of thing you hear about, satirically in The Onion and things like it doesn't actually happen. And then you suddenly realise, oh my God, it's real. So yeah, I think outrage was the general feeling at the time.
After the news broke, Exeter Unmasked was just one of many groups that formed to try and tackle this situation head-on. One of these groups was After Hate.
It basically started out in my hometown, Preston, and it's a community-led initiative dedicated to sort of signposting victims of hate crime to appropriate resources and raising awareness of its existence in general, how it affects different groups, and what people can do to combat it.
What makes it different to other organisations and societies that come out since the start, like
well, firstly, we don't want to co-opt their movement. I want to make that really clear, because they're doing some amazing work. I went to the anti-racist rally, and they are doing amazing work. However, our plan is to be more of an all-year-round thing, so we wouldn't be doing rallies and stuff for particular incidents. However, we intend to sort of collaborate with groups like Exeter Unmasked if they want to raise awareness of their rallies and the work they're doing, and get more people going, get more people aware of it. So we are a platform for them to use. And I think a lot of people are here wanting to make a difference and just don't know where to start. So we're a sort of stepping stone to those organisations as well.
With an issue as broad as this one, with lots of facets and concerns, sometimes it's difficult to know where to start in terms of tackling it and addressing it. I think for us an important place to start is with language and conversation. If you hear someone saying something problematic, or you see a Facebook post which has a word or phrase in it that some people could find offensive, don't put it to the wayside and assume it's just a joke, it's just a one-off, they don't mean it, etc. It's not them saying these words, they're just reposting it, whatever. Call them out on it.
I think it's very much about unity, and that was something really good that came out of the Unmasked rally. And also it's about people not just letting it slide. I think that's a big problem, that people do hear people making comments like this and don't stand up and say anything, and especially for white people hearing these kind of comments, it's really important that we make sure that minority student voices are heard, for one thing, and don't talk over them, but also we don't let this slide, and we don't because if we don't respond to it and make people know that it's wrong, we are complicit.
It gets to the point where if we are going to do an anti-racism rally, who are the people that are actually being mostly affected, like, by this racism, or like by racism on campus? And it is PMU students on campus. So I guess we felt that if we could get them to come and talk, and like you don't really get a lot of opportunities, I guess, as BAME students to like voice your opinions on like matters of your identity. I like in my I'm like in the feminist society and that, so I'm being a rep, and like this is basically my job to get more events representing like people of colour on campus. So I guess it's sort of like we wanted it to be like, not that we don't feel misogyny is an important issue. Like, I'm an intersectional feminist, come on, like misogyny is a big issue for me, but I feel that race could have easily been like swallowed under all of this.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shades. I'm the 2017-18 year president. First, I would take this opportunity to thank every person involved with the organisation of this event. This shows that we at Exeter care.
Overall, there's been mixed responses regarding the actions of the Guild and the university administration after the incident. Some people saying they didn't do enough, some people saying there's only so much they can do, especially now when there's a legal process involved. A few weeks after the incident, the Vice-Chancellor's office did release an email to all of the students telling us what the status of the students involved were at the time regarding punishments and everything the university was going to do moving forward to further tackle discrimination issues at the uni.
Well, to be honest, like, I got some emails from them, but I didn't think that like it's helpful or something like that. But I was mostly interested in how university takes like responsibility. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what came from the Guild and what came from the university body itself, with the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor and all that sort of thing. I think the email communication about it was quite good. They addressed it quite fully and said that they were doing an investigation. Would it be nice to know a bit more about what was happening, a bit about what actually happened overall, because we're told, there's people were suspended, but it didn't really say kind of whether that... No, I think they said that they might be suspended, but that was up for appeal, and so there wasn't really any conclusive like this happened and this is what we're going to do.
It was very slow moving. Like, I was quite disappointed with the initial reaction. However, I think the fact that people were feeding back and saying this reaction isn't good enough, the fact that they took that on board very quickly was really good. And obviously the sort of like suspended BLS and really they made this very serious, and that's good. Like, they didn't just brush it off as some lads joking around. They made sure people were taking it seriously. But like I say, the fact that it did take a media explosion to get it to this point is a little bit disappointing.
It's hard. I think the thing is, like, as I said, this is a massive institution, and so you can't really expect them to do masses in terms of how can you possibly control over such a big amount of people. And also equally, I do think if you're 20 years old and you've gotten to the point where you think that's acceptable in life, I don't really think there's much hope for you, to be honest. You should have been taught at primary school that racism is not okay and that you should be respectful to other people. I really think that's pretty basic stuff, or at least it should be.
I think it's going to be very difficult to reach that many students to have a widespread change occur, but at the same time I think it is up to us to pressure the university to make sure that there are safe spaces for these people, that there is not that we won't tolerate these incidents, but we'll actively make efforts to make sure that this doesn't happen, and reprimand the individuals who can, even on a microaggression level, kind of what kind of small conveniences that we're not taken seriously enough. How do we change those kind of conversations in the language used, and how we treat just soldiering on from these situations and actually being no, we need to take a stand, we need to make changes. And the thing is we have to pressure people because it's not happening on its own.
The incident at Exeter was unfortunately not just another incident of racism at this uni, but at universities across Britain. Not only have places like Nottingham-Trent been identified, but also one of the country's highest esteemed universities, Oxford, have reportedly failed to offer a single student of colour a place at 13 of its colleges across a 6-year period. During the month-long production of this documentary, another incident has surfaced at the University of Warwick, where 11 students have been suspended for making rape jokes on a group chat. Now, despite the anger or sadness we might feel towards these individuals, I think it's highlighted something important, which is the basis for this documentary. These incidents are no longer going unnoticed. Private talk and locker room chat no longer has the private code of whatever goes in the chat stays in the chat. And I think it's also worth mentioning that these aren't pictures going up on Facebook of someone wearing an offensive t-shirt, an offensive symbol, and people being outraged by it. These are whistleblowers who no longer are satisfied with waiting around and hoping that everything's a joke and it will all be cleared up later. When you have people like rapist Brock Turner being described by his own father as being punished for 10 minutes of action, it's important that comments like these and sentiments like these are taken seriously, because you never know who these people are going to grow up to be.
It was law students who, potentially want to go into practice in law and representing some of the people who they have these opinions about. That means that the fact that they did then lose their graduate jobs and training contracts, so that's really good, because that sends out a firm message that you can't go into, well, you shouldn't be able to go into any career with attitudes like that, but particularly law, where it is really going to affect people and you have a big effect on people's lives. So I think highlighting the severity of this incident, especially in the context of that they were law students, that was a good response.
It's the third and final term, and despite the weather and the sunshine, for Exeter students that means revising, exams, and frantically trying to get essays finished the night before the deadline. The talk about BLS in the group chat has somewhat died down, but will it be forgotten? The reaction from the students here seems to suggest that it won't be.
It's quite bittersweet in a way. I think it's like, you need to accept that stuff like this does happen, and also kind of like surround yourself with people who think like you. I don't know, I think it's quite hard to kind of articulate how exactly we can do that, but I think with stuff like the whole thing on Twitter with it being revealed and Facebook, I think just staying conscious of events like this and kind of trying not to forget them is just really important. I don't want it to be a situation where Freshers Week starts again and then something else happens again and then everyone's like, oh wow, X has a race problem. Well, okay, we know that. What are we going to do about it?
That emotion and that sentiment is there, and I think that's what's going to build on it. Yeah, what's going to carry people. And I think we're smart enough to make frameworks that have to work within that system, that may have to sacrifice some things on some occasions to try and help the people who need it most and protect their well-being.
Yeah. We might have to just make a few people feel uncomfortable by calling them out in daily situations, and it gets to the point where it's do I want to be loved and accepted by my peers, or do I actually want to call out stuff which I think were discriminatory and could actually, if it spreads and continues and goes on without being called out and without being approached, that could just lead to a whole other level of Pandora's box of issues.
One group does something massively extreme, and then people who are associated with that group by any means also get categorised in the same group, even though they have nothing to do with it. So the majority of Exeter students would not dream of having any sort of sentiment like that. Yet it seems that Exeter student, base has been associated with that sort of behaviour. I think that's quite unfair, to be honest, because the vast majority of us don't think things like that or say things like that.
Had I been in year 13 right now, looking at universities, applying to universities, if I'd heard about something like this, I probably would have rethought my decision, because naturally, as a person of colour, as a woman, you don't want to just find yourself in a situation where you're not welcomed, but I think you have to realise that it's not you know, representative of everyone here, and that there are people like people who are leading like the Exeter Unmasked movement who really feel strongly in the opposite way.
I really don't know. Like, maybe it's a good idea to get an opinion about students and then look at them, like what we are thinking, then try to find a solution all together.
Racism is it's not like we're going to resolve it over the course of this night, over the course of like just this one rally. There are going to be more rallies. Like, it's not like I enjoy being like, oh yes, another rally about how we have to talk about racism again. But I just think, to be like an agent of change within this movement, if you can call it that.
It is about groups who are like in a privileged position, making sure that they are taking action as well, and it's not just the people who are in an oppressed position having to shout and scream to get heard, but I think it's definitely about coming together as a community and letting people know that this won't stand and we're not having it.
This isn't a step-to-step that you can kind of reach a point of perfection. I think it's challenging. I think there's going to be some bad perceptions. I think it's even now discussing these things and how to approach it. Everyone has a different idea of what's best to do, but I think we need to have those dialogues. We need to have these conversations first and foremost, and we need to learn how to listen properly as well as speak up about these things and create a space where people can feel comfortable to speak and feel humble enough to listen to everyone else as well.
Bullying, harassment and discrimination have no place on campus, have no place in our society, and have no place in any society that upholds values of human dignity and respect for one another and respect for each other's differences. I think it's really important that you can only learn from seeing each other and from seeing one and seeing ourselves in the other.
Sometimes when someone unsolicitedly reaches out to touch my hair, and the look of contempt I give them is both subtle and spoken in a language they themselves have yet to learn, I find it within my duty to correct you, sir, who says I've been to Angola, when I say I'm from Zambia, because Africa's one monolithic culture, and it must be really hot where you come from. But I come from Aberdeen, the northeast of Scotland. Our rain eats your rain for breakfast. I've grown up in the northern hemisphere, and I've grown tired of hearing you say you speak English really well. I get it. I'm confusing. I am, after all, a sole cocoa puff in a sea of Rice Krispies, and it must be really hard to deal with someone correcting you. In most of the spaces I occupy, only the palms of my hands reflect anything in the room. The prelude to my name is uncomfortable silence that refuses to correct itself, refuses to try. Comes enough times in your life where silence becomes synonymous with self. My identity is difficult, even for me, and every time you question my belonging, I question it too. My here voice, but my there skin, my further than these borders skin, my don't cross into our borders, but will we define what that means when your land becomes something we can inherit skin? My you will never inherit this very land skin. I wear my mask inverted, parading as white on the inside. That was what my privilege meant. The affordability of social mobility and educational activity, but the barrier that always demanded more than I could offer. You've given me a bank account that filed bankruptcy the moment it was created. What more do you want? Y'all have bank accounts? Isn't this what you wanted? Isn't this equality? Why are you angry? You say as history trickles into your lives, a currency that really touches these hands colored further than these borders. Do not forget a past that really remembers me, a history that forgets and ejects us. We did not get to carve into the stone. We were hit with rocks exalting your legacy. We built with blocks, palaces and galleries with your names on the side. Where your people and your history reside, this is the slowest but surest form of genocide. Your books, your stones, your mountains couldn't carry the weight of such crimes. Couldn't tally the number of bodies. Couldn't remember the names you gifted them. As if you didn't steal them away from other prophecies. You empty them out, stripping away their souls and stuffing them with cotton. And somehow we've all forgotten. far we've gotten away.